The Barnstormer and the Lady, the story of Walter and Olive Ann Beech.
Hello, I'm Mary Lynn Oliver, the younger daughter of Walter and Olive Ann Beech. Our family is extremely honored to accept the Paul E. Garber Award on behalf of our parents in Beech Aircraft. We are also extremely grateful that they are being honored together because they truly were a team. Today I'm in front of a 1934 Beech Staggerwing, the first airplane my parents built their hopes and dreams around. My father, a bold, eccentric barnstormer, obsessed with flight. My mother, an elegant but strong lady, unafraid to lead a company in a man's world. From those early days to the multi-billion-dollar industry, Walter and Olive Ann helped lay the foundation for general aviation in America. Though to me, they were just my parents, whom I deeply admired and loved. Thank you to the First Flight Society and the National Park Service for this great honor and recognition of their achievements. Our family is proud to share their story.
In the mid-1920s, young World War I veteran Walter Beech roared around the air racing circuit, winning race after race. Walter was a barnstormer's barnstormer. He parlayed his racing success into a partnership with two aviator peers, Clyde Cessna and Lloyd Stearman, creating the Travel Air Manufacturing Company. Early on, the aviators were busy building and selling planes. Needing someone to run the office, Clyde hired a 21-year-old from Waverly, Kansas.
She'd gone to secretarial school, so she had skills, and they needed a secretary. So I think she thought she'd be a good one.
And she certainly was.
Turned out she was.
Olive Ann came with experience managing an office and keeping books, but it didn't take long for Walter Beech to take an interest in her.
I think it's true that my father liked pretty women, and I think probably, I don't know how quickly, but as she was the only woman, it'd be hard to miss her.
Beech's intrigue with Olive Ann was obvious to others, especially to Cessna, who hired her.
Now, there's the old story goes, which I could never verify, that Walter laid eyes on Olive Ann and that was it. That's what Mr. Cessna said. And he even told Walter after a couple of weeks, why don't you just marry the girl? That's basically what he was like.
I think they were a very wonderful, dynamic duo that worked well together. Each had their own qualities that helped them achieve things, and they complemented each other, I think. And I think of course, I don't know, I was just a young girl, but they didn't seem to have the friction or, they seemed to get along very well.
Mary Lynn grew up hearing about the tough times before Travel Air's success when Walter's air races helped meet payroll.
I remember her talking about the air shows and how they had to go out and sell the tickets. And they had to sell the tickets so they had enough money to pay their employees.
By 1929, business was good enough that Travel Air sold to Curtiss Wright for a handsome profit. A few months later, the stock market crashed. Before they left Wichita to work for the new company, Beech talked about his rags to riches success with local reporters.
He said, go get a picture of me when I first came here. I've done well, and I'm not ashamed to say so. That's exactly what he told him. So he wasn't afraid to say that. He was poor as he could be when he first came, but by 1929, he was a nationally and to some degree internationally recognized businessman and as well as being a pilot and an aviation person.
You could say Beech was both a show-off as well as being good with employees.
Bit of a showboat, that's correct. But everybody I talked to, they're all dead now, the Travel Air employees always said he was fair. He was a fair man. He'd come out, work with them on the production line and all that. But as time went by, he became more and more a business suit, marketing, sell. He knew how to sell airplanes.
The Beeches moved to New York, where Walter worked as vice president. His long hours caused him to arrive late at one of Olive Ann's well-prepared dinners.
And he was late, so he came home and she was angry and threw the bowl of mashed potatoes against the wall.
Olive Ann was fed up with life in New York, so she boarded a train back to Kansas when Walter made a dramatic and romantic intervention.
He flew the plane and he landed on the train tracks. Train stopped and got on the train and found her and apologized. And off they flew. And well, it's a pretty romantic story. It's pretty, that would kind of make you appreciate this person.
In 1932, they returned to Wichita to launch Beech Aircraft with Walter and Olive Ann as co-founders. It took guts to start a company during the Deep Depression.
And they were risk takers, and they were adventuresome, and I think they believed in what they could do together.
Together, the Beeches filled the sky with icons of aviation. The Model 17, fondly known as the Staggerwing, was a luxurious plane during a time when people couldn't afford luxuries. Some thought Walter was crazy. He didn't sell an airplane for 2 years, but Beech managed to hold on during the Depression. Just before the U.S. entered World War II, Beech was ramping up wartime production. Around 90% of the 45,000 U.S. Army Air Force bombardiers trained on the Model 18 twin Beech, which helped the Allied victory.
Back in those war years when all the plants were gearing up here, were you all close to like the folks at Cessna?
We were all very friendly. I mean, our early pioneers, we were all friendly. Competitors, but friendly.
Like Dwayne Wallace?
Yeah, oh yes, he's a great friend of mine. He worked for me one time.
In 1940, Walter suffered a devastating illness.
I mean, it was a terrible tragedy that he got encephalitis because it changed his life. He couldn't fly anymore. He couldn't drive anymore.
When Walter died at 59 in 1950, there was an obvious choice to lead Beech Aircraft, Olive Ann. But not everyone inside the company had the same opinion. Plots thickened to try to overthrow her. She gave them a fight they were not prepared for and fired several executives.
She'd done this all her life. Finances were everything to her. She knew how to take care of a company. Nobody could have done it better than her, in my opinion.
I mean, obviously she was a role model. Obviously she was ahead of her time. I'm sure there was some gender bias, but on her part, she was going to show that was Ben what she could do, I think.
She was one of the first women to run a Fortune 500 company and was well respected in the industry. It was tough because she was a woman in a man's world. The Beech Empire welcomed many celebrities. You might see Bob Hope, Walt Disney, and even President Lyndon Johnson, whose fondness for the King Air was no secret. Mary Lynn and her older sister Suzanne loved visiting their father at the office and being entertained by him.
The thing I think is important to remember about Beechcraft is there never would have been a Beechcraft without my father. Ah, dear.
It's all right.
But it never would have survived without him.
What was your husband like?
Oh, I think he was an ordinary person, knew what he wanted to do, and was blessed with the ability to accomplish it as he went along. Particularly, he loved flying, and he had to have the best airplane. And of course, he had a lot of we created a lot of outstanding aircraft.
Did you feel at all at any point in your career that you all were legends in the aviation business?
Well, I don't think so. When we used to know everybody in the aviation field.
Beech prospered under Olive Ann's leadership. In 1980, she received the Wright Brothers Memorial Trophy. It was the largest turnout ever, and Olive Ann thoroughly enjoyed the evening.
Would you please join me in a toast to Olive Ann Beech, the First Lady of Aviation and an honored Kansan.
She gives a one-line acceptance speech.
Thank you very much from a grateful heart.
The Barnstormer and the Lady. Our story about general aviation and the lives of two of the industry's gutsiest, most fascinating characters. The brusque barnstormer with a heart of gold. A guy who would destroy a tailored suit to roll up his sleeves and tear into an engine. The lady, regal and dignified with an iron will, who flies the company to multi-million-dollar heights.